Yeah, I actually went to a factory and met with the designer of Sergio Rossi's shoes, Francesco Russo, when I was in Italy recently to find out why there's such a difference between high-heeled shoes. And it turns out that shoes are more architecture than sort of fashion design in a sense. They really are all about engineering and trigonometry and the strength of the materials that go in them.
So when I'm holding up my shoe right here, so if I'm looking at this shoe and the heel, in terms of what should I look for when I'm in the store? I mean, is there a strength in the heel that's going to keep me from sort of teetering back and forth when I watch? Is there something that's going to keep my toes from actually sort of like overlapping on each other? What should women be looking for when they buy?
You know, there's a couple of things, and I would call it a three-stage process. The first thing you should do is like what you're doing: hold the shoe and twist it around a little bit. Pull at the heel. See if that shoe seems really, really sturdy. If it's bending,
Right.
forget it.
Right.
But
It's
there,
not.
in the middle of a good heel is a steel shank that runs straight through and should not leave any kind of bending, because if it's bending, then there's nothing supporting your foot. It's one reason why wedge heels tend to be very, very comfortable.
And when you say wedge
Also,
heels, you get a little bit more thickness sort of through here, which sort of makes your foot support not quite. It's not quite that awful angle. Is that right, Christina?
Exactly. You know what? It's simply a bridge underneath the middle part of your foot. I have a pair of wooden heels, and oddly enough, you'd think that'd be really uncomfortable. They're the most comfortable heels that I own because they can't move at all, so they're supporting my foot.
Now, what about the toes? Because you see, and a lot of men say, how do you ever walk in those pointy-toed shoes? You somehow manage to make it work, although it can cause problems later down the road with your feet. What should we be looking for in the toes, and how are the designers working to make it so that, as I said before, we're not walking around like we're crippled or something?
Well, I wish more designers were thinking about it. It's always great when the styles have more rounded toes because it actually gives us more room. But the first thing is to not try to cram your foot into a shoe that's slightly too small, because that forces your toes into that little pointy triangle where they really can't go. So you think about that triangular part as an appendage that won't be used. It's there for style, but it's not for putting your toes in. Your foot should be resting back.
Right.
In an area that's more called the toe box itself. And if the front part of your foot is being squeezed, forget it. If it's squeezed when you're trying it on, after 4 hours, it's going to be the death grip.
And just having sort of an opening here in the front often helps as well. I wonder, I've seen some very funky heels out there lately, Christina, where the heel itself is sort of twisted. It's in a weird shape. It kind of has maybe a bend in it. What is that about? Is that just about a design, or is that about comfort as well?
You know what? It's about great engineering of shoes. Frank Gehry has made some really interesting buildings with twisted metal, and designers of shoes are doing the same thing. As long as they have the engineering down and really sturdy materials, you can make a heel go in all kinds of different directions. Marc Jacobs actually had heels coming out of the ball of the foot horizontally across the floor. He just ended right where the weight of the heel comes down on the shoe, and so it supported the foot. You can do a lot of things with shoes in the same way that you can with building architecture.